What are you even studying to be? Or Aquila? Hmm. Oh shit! I managed to get a fucking MVP with Aquila. strict to rules, and severe to sanity. But hey, at least you have the. At least you. Hmm. But yeah, you live on a campus, right? Oh, that sounds severely unsafe.
Thank you
Oh,
for
somebody's
telling me
watching
that
your stream.
Thank you for telling me that I'm muted, devil. And yes, electricity.
Shocking, isn't it?
Shut the fuck up. Match the tool with Krigler. Tools. I'm gonna have to remember that for later. Because I saw a bunch of these signs on the week 3 and 4 lab where we'll actually be hooking up an entire electrical system for a house. The hook, wire hook and goes counter clockwise around the screw. I've been told that it's because it makes it much more firm whenever you actually squeeze it. Yeah, I've seen these fucking photos before. Jesus. Okay. No! Why would anybody think that's a fucking good idea? You should make study cards of those. Study cards are really fun way to learning with. Yeah, if I had the actual tools, I would actually do so, but because I don't, I will not. Alright, I already did this before. Handout homework packet. These bitches are giving me a homework packet when I go home. Could And I'll be doing this with a team to myself. This clearly seems like a environment for the teacher and not everyone, but that's just IMO. Yeah. Don't ask me though.
Welcome, hi, my name is Ray, I'm with RSI. Today we're in residential electric phase 2, we're going to talk about electricity. A lot of people don't understand what basic electricity is, the concept of it. Basically, you knew about when you were a child. Ever play with magnets and they didn't attract each other, they opposed each other, or if you put them together, they attract? That's what electricity is. Picture a motor turning with a magnetic field in it. As it turns, it's alternating the positive and negative internally in the motor. When it's doing that, it's pushed off on the conductor in electrons, and that's electromagnetic field.
Mwah.
It gives electricity its push. It gives it the power to do what we need done. Today we're going to break down some of the basics on electricity. We're going to start with a residential 240 120 volt power distribution system, single phase, as you can see on the PowerPoint. When we talk about residential electricity, we have single phase, which is L1, L2, and a neutral. L1 is 120 volts, L2 is 120 volts, and the neutral is our balancing. So from L1 to L2 is 240 volts, and that's how we get our power to our distribution for our home electrical. In our slide, you'll see the three phases. We're going to make a one-line ladder diagram out of them. We'll drop the L2 and throw a switch and a light into it. That's the basic circuit. That's what we're going to be working with in all of our boards and in our class to get you to understand how to control electricity and all of the proper ways of making it do what we need it to do. In the diagram, you can see the switch is open, so therefore the light would be off. If that switch closed, the light would then go on. Simple concept. When we're getting our electricity, it's coming from generating stations, hydroelectric, nuclear, solar, wind, any type of electrical source or generating plant puts the electricity out in a higher frequency or a higher voltage. They send it through the desert on the transmission lines. 400 kVA is what it shows in our slide, is across the desert. Typically on the towers, if you count the insulators, they're 10,000 volts per insulator. So if you've got 15 insulators, you got 150,000 volts on those lines. So you can kind of figure it out by looking at it, what the utility company is transmitting through the desert on those lines. Again, they step it down as it passes from transformer to transformer. A lot of our heavy industrial or large factories will buy it at like 32,000 volts because then they can transform it. They get it at a better rate because they're buying it in, let's say, bulk, like the Price Club of purchasing electricity. Then it goes to our industrial factories, medium-sized things. They all also buy it in larger voltages because, again, they transform it to what their needs are. When we get it to our residences, it's already split down by the engineers of the utility company to what we can distribute into residents. And that's typically between 11,000 volts and 7,200 volts. You've probably seen many power poles in your neighborhood have different lines hanging on them or transformers hanging on them, as in the slide show on the PowerPoint now. The top wire is a static wire. That is designed in case there's any lightning or strikes that would be coming to the system which would cause damage to it. To subside the damage, it has a conductor going down through the pole to a ground rod, taking the voltage to zero plane, which would clear it. The second part of that, you'll see your A, B, and C phases, which is our transmission lines, and they'll tap those to go to our primary for our transformers. On the transformer, it's a step-down transformer, so it's taking that 7,200 volts, stepping it down to 120, 240, which is what we use in our residential applications. And also on the same slide, just to show you the safety zone for the different communications, our telephone and our cable use the same poles. And they have to stay about 10 feet away because of the EMF that the electricity puts out. It would interfere with their signals. So that's why the safety, on top of the factor that they don't want their workers involved in any of the higher voltages. Here's another view of that same residential power pole. On the top, you'll see a fuse pullout, which is where the lineman will use his hot stick and separate the primaries from that transformer so that we can work on it. Down below, you'll see distribution transformer and secondaries. The secondaries are what go to our residence, and you can see the taps on the side of the transformer. It ends up going from there into our residence, and you'll see the 7200 volt transformer on the slide. That's your typical primary voltage on those lines. Then our transformers, through magnetic coupling, will step it down to our 120, 240 volt, which we then use in our residential applications.
Mm.
So from L1 to our neutral, we're going to get 120 volts. From L1 to L2, we're going to get 240 volts. They call this single phase power. Overhead system entrance conductors, if you've seen them drop, and we call that a service drop going to our residence, have a messenger wire which supports the conductors coming down from the pole. That messenger wire is also the neutral conductor. So we'll have the messenger as the neutral, which is our bare conductor in the drop, and L1 and L2, which then are our 120 volt legs. Those bring it to our residence. To our overhead would be the service mast through a service cap, and you'll notice that they have 3 to 4 foot of wire required by the utility companies coming out of the service head for them to make their connections to it, and that's for the purpose of a drip loop. So any condensate, rain, or moisture on the wires won't go down into our electrical, and then the service head or our weather head also help prevent water from getting into where our connections are open and exposed. And that's it's called a service mast. Here's a better picture of it from overhead, what it looks like. You see the point of attachment where the messenger wire is connected to it, and then they make their splices. These aren't insulated, but they will be when they're completed. You see with the blocks on it, L1 and L2 are your 120 volt legs, and the neutral or messenger then brings down that neutral. That is called a service drop. This is an underground service conductors. They is the two ways that power is brought to a dwelling: overhead service drop or underground through laterals. And the laterals then come to a riser. The riser brings the power up into our meter for distribution into the residence. And that's a picture of the riser on the PowerPoint there. And it goes to, from the meter, we go to our service entrance panel, which is our breakers and our overcurrent protection. That's just the basics of how the utility company brings the power and what we use and how it gets from their generating stations to our residents.
Open circuit voltage between two terminals of a single pole switch on a lighting circuit when the switch is in the off position should be reading 0 volts, as the circuit would be open. The NEC is published by the National Fire Protection Association. To remain up to date, it is revised every
Hmm.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Hmm.
Oh.
Working on equipment with power turned on can result in burns, serious injury, or an outage, a short circuit, all above, or death. I'm just gonna say all of the above. Really?
You got it wrong?
Yeah, I got all of them wrong. Open
Huh.
circuit voltage between two terminals of a single pulse switch. Oh, between the two terminals of a single pole switch. So on the switch, not. Okay. Wait, no. If it's in the off position and it's open, this the single pole inside the switch would not be touching the other side. So that would be off. That would be 0. It wouldn't be connecting. There would be nothing jumping in between. If it was on, then I would be. Okay. Kinda bullshit, not gonna lie.
Yep.
Working on equipment when the power turned on can result in burns, serious injury, or it can cause an outage, it can cause a short circuit, and it can certainly cause death. I have a feeling I might know more about this than people teaching either that or this is just a really old thing. I'm probably gonna end up using. I already know all this.
Hi, I'm Ray with RSI Phase 2 Electrical Residential. We're going to talk today about receptacles. There are many different types of receptacles. The primary one we're going to talk about are what we're going to be using in class to do our work. On the slide, you'll see 3 different types of receptacles. If you notice the difference between the 3 different types of receptacles, one is a GFCI. The base of the GFCI is of the Decor or Designer series. Decor is a brand name, and Designer is what it actually is called. The other 2 are called duplex receptacles. The other thing you'll notice right away on those is the 2 receptacles on the left-hand side have a T on one side as an intersection. That is actually a functioning receptacle for that. A lot of air conditioners, window air conditioners, microwaves that have the terminal sideways in that so that you can't plug it into a standard 15 amp receptacle. That T tells us that it's a 20 amp listed receptacle for that application. So it prevents anybody from putting an appliance that requires 20 amps into a standard outlet. So that's the main difference between those that you see up there. The other receptacle on the far right would be a tamper resistor. If you look at it real closely, you can see the insert of it has like a milky white in it, and that's so children cannot put anything that would conduct electricity into that receptacle and possibly get hurt. On the receptacle itself, you don't realize how many different things that it is designed and engineered to do, and the purpose behind everything is designed for safety and function. I have a receptacle here we're going to talk about for a minute. This is a standard 15 amp duplex receptacle. If you look at the receptacle, there are a lot of different things on it. I noticed that in the center here, it's stamped 15 amps. That's because it's listed for a 15 amp receptacle, also for 125 volts. The 125 volts is because the utility company is allowed to provide plus or minus 10% of voltage coming to our residence, and this device has to be able to handle what the utility company might provide as far as voltage. Other things on this that you'll see is a UL listing. That's Underwriters Laboratory. That means this has been tested and approved for its application as an electrical device. Also has a CSR application stamp on it, which is Canadian Research Laboratories, which again makes it more of an international product for being listed and capable of electrical current conduction. If you flip it around to the back, you'll see 2 other circles on it. One of them says CU in it. That's the periodic table for copper. So that means that this is approved for copper conductors. On the other side, you see an AL, which is aluminum, with a line through it, which means this is not listed for aluminum conductors. Specific devices are made specifically for aluminum conductors, and you can still purchase those type of receptacles through most of your standard big box stores carry those. Other things that you notice on this right away is that there's 2 screws on one side, and I don't know if you see the color of them, they're brass. That tells that is designed for the hot conductor, or the power, the 120 volts. On the other side of the device, you can see that the screws are silver. That tells me that is the neutral, or the balancing conductor from the power source. On the front of the receptacle, you'll notice the terminal blades. The larger terminal is on the silver side, so that would tell me that's the neutral side of the device. It also on the back says white conductor on the back of the device. So 3 places it tells me that this side of the device is designed for the neutral conductor. Again, the smaller terminal and the brass conductor and hot written on the back are 3 places it tells me that this is listed for the hot conductor, the line, the power. Other connections on this is we have the green conductor, which is our grounding conductor, which ties the strap, and the other of the 3 terminals, the round top with the flat bottom terminal, ties into the grounding system. Always has to be hooked up, very necessary for all your safety. A couple other things about this device is the fact that plastic in it. Everybody thinks, okay, that's just there because that's what they had to make it out of, but it's also designed as an excellent insulator for electrical. It has another function. If you've ever had a gas leak and you've smelled that rotten egg smell from gas, they put that smell into that gas. It doesn't come with that smell in it. The same with this plastic and all of our electrical device. It was put into the device or used in the devices with the same purpose. When it is heating up or melting, it will put off an odor, which is very detectable. Some people liken it to a rotten fish smell or something of that nature, but it's very distinctive. If you've ever smelled it, it'll tell you that you have a potential electrical problem in that area. So it's a very good tool for helping us troubleshoot a lot of the situations we run into with a receptacle. This receptacle can also be used as a split receptacle so that you can control it with a wall switch. To do that, on the hot side or the brass side of the switch, you would remove this tab between the top and bottom screw, and that would isolate this part of the receptacle from the other, so you could put a switch conductor to one side and a constant conductor to the other side. That way you would be able to have your alarm clock working on the constant side and your table lamp plugged into the other side, so that when you come in your bedroom, you can turn your light off and on. Typically when we do that, we install these, and this is an industry standard, it's not a code issue, with the ground up so that the homeowner or customer would know, hey, that switch is different, or that receptacle is different, and they would know that's where they want to place their table lamp. That's about that for this right now. We'll go more into it later on, and also we'll go into the larger receptacles for your dryers and ranges and things of that nature, but for right now, this is the one we're going to be using for our class.
Fuck. Why do they put the fucking image right here? Because it covers up half of the... Okay. For the most part, the safety practice includes tagging, locking, and disconnecting, and turning off the power. Be very careful when interpreting symbols because of the similarity between them. Electron flow along a conductor in one direction describes DC. Alternating current is described as electrons flowing along a conductor in a singular direction, but when the fuck is it? I know alternating current is essentially, you know, it going back and forth. However, it needs a trigger to allow for that. Three out of three. Better than the one that I had earlier. That one's gonna be in class. We're gonna be decoding NEC code. Do you need to worry about low voltage circuits in terms of your own safety? Why or why not? Yes. I want to see if I'm actually saying that right.
All right, we talked about a proper way of connecting to a duplex receptacle and proper technique for doing that. Now on the screen, we're going to show you a couple examples that weren't done correctly and the results of it. You see the picture in the center of the screen on top? That typically was caused because of a receptacle that was worn out internally, and that could have been either from a high ampacity, like a vacuum cleaner or something like that. When they removed it, they didn't bend over and remove the plug properly. They'll pull it, and it makes the conductors inside poor contacts, and that'll cause a resistive connection, and that'll burn the internal parts of a receptacle up like that picture in the center. The one on the left on the bottom shows where the conductor has actually gotten so hot that it's turned white. It was actually probably orange at one time because it was a resistive connection, and that burned the oils off of that conductor, and you can see the results of that in that picture there. On the bottom right, you'll see a receptacle which had possibly moisture in it. If you see on the copper, you see green, and the only thing with the copper turns green is moisture. So something got into that, on top of the fact that it had a poor connection, because you can see back into the conductor where the insulator is blistered and actually separated from the conductor. It got that hot. On top of it, if you remember, I talked about the safety of the device having an odor when it was failing or burning. And that picture shows the smoke coming from it. That is one of our best tools for locating the problem with a receptacle or any kind of electrical problem in a residence. So these films, these pictures here bring up some of the bad stories if you don't follow the methods that we talked about. Wrap your wire 2/3 around the screw head. Make sure that it's a good, solid, flat connection. Make sure that you have 100% positive contact between the screw and the copper that you're putting into the device. Also, you want to tighten your screw, additional half turn after it makes contact, and it torques out at 12 inch-pounds. So you don't have to be crazy with it. I typically, when I'm done, I'll move the wire. If the copper starts to bend and the screw doesn't go anywhere, you've got a good solid connection. You should be okay.
Okay. Any application rated more than 15 amps should be on an individual application circuit. Individual application circuits. Cord plug, direct wiring, and electrical clothes dryers are a good example of cord and plug methods for connection to power. High current cord sets, types of 3-wire and 4-wire high plug currents. Seen these before. High current outlets look like such. A 4 connection to dryer. Of course, ground. 2 hot wires and the neutral wire. Application wire for 4-wire outlet for dryer. Neutral goes in the front. Okay. Both hot wires go on the side, and the ground goes all the way to the top. Neutral and hot. Notice that only 240V will load in a dryer is the heating element. All other loads operate off of 120. Heater. Direct connect wire into an application. Hardwire to cartridges also. Hardwire to water heaters. 10 gauge wire. Going there to whatever it needs to go. And it goes to a breaker. Gotcha. Oh wait, no, it goes from breaker to the water heater. Top of the wire here. So obviously going to be using those type of wirings. direct wire to a condensing unit. Official training institutes offers outreach training programs of interest to electricians, contractors, and instructors. The basic safety courses for general construction safety and health are the OSHA blank and OSHA blank courses. I'm seeing 10-hour to 30-hour. Working on electrical equipment requires insulated shoes, face shields, and rubber gloves. For the most part, the safety practice includes tagging, locking, and disconnecting and turning off the power. Yep, that was right. 3 out of 3. Grounding. The path for unwanted electricity flow to and from the electrical system to Earth. The metal frame of the building can be used as a ground. The concrete encased electrode. Gripping rods, 8 feet in number, 8 feet long, and 5.8 resonant feet in diameter. Geosite, geosite. Yeah, 1, 2 things. Even before I was doing these classes, these fucking photos would always like scare me. Jesus. Focus, filters, balance. 1/40th of a second, line side. Portable circuit breaker at wall outlet, P outlet. So in kitchen, bathroom, garage, outside. Okay. So that's a ground. This is the neutral. That's the hot side, and this is also hot, sometimes called a tie strip. On a split receptacle, remember to remove the tie strip. Yeah, the tab.
Hi, I'm Ray with RSI Residential Electric Phase 2. We're going to talk about stripping and hooking today for 14 gauge non-metallic sheath cable. Our conductors have to fit onto our receptacles so that we have a good electrical contact between the screw and the receptacle itself. We achieve this by removing the sheathing from the conductors for 6 inches minimum per NEC 300.14. Requires 6 inches of free conductor in our box. Typically I would do this in a box, and 314.17 requires a 1/4 inch of the sheathing exposed inside the box so that the inspector can see it. Our boxes are fire listed and rated so that everything that we make as far as splices has to be inside of a enclosure. When we are stripping our conductors for prep for the hook, we're going to use our wire strippers, and we're going to go into the 14 gauge size on the wire strippers, approximately 3/4 of an inch, and remove the sheathing. And then with the same tool, we can either place it in the side and use the hole in the side of the tool to make a hook. And that hook will place on our device clockwise so that when we're done, you will not be able to see the copper outside of the head of the screw. And that's a proper connection right there. It's very crucial. 90% of the electrical failures are caused due to improper connections. As you can see on the slideshow, there's a connection up there, and it looks to be a very good connection. But the problem is you see shading or shadows underneath that connection, and it's shiny in 2 points where it was tightened down. The only place it made contact is where you could see the shiny points on that wire. So that connection was actually probably a decent connection, but it wasn't perfectly flat. And a perfectly flat connection will give you a better conductivity for your screw to make electrical connection to it. In the next slide, we're going to show some of the proper techniques. You see the wire wrapped 2/3 of the way around the screw head in a clockwise direction. That's what we want to do. Also maintaining, again, the flat or straight bend in your wire when you do your hook in it. Also, when you tighten or torque your screw down, typically you tighten the screw down until it makes good solid contact, and will turn a 1/2 turn after that. That should be more than sufficient. The actual torque spec is 12 inch-pounds, so you don't need to go beyond that or strip your screw out to get a good connection. Typically when I tighten my screw down, I will get a hold of the wire and give it a little movement and see if it actually stays tight. Again, you do not want to over tighten or damage your screw because it's not going to make a better connection. 12 inch-pounds is all it takes. If you happen to get bad connections, on the slide you'll see some of the results. Those slides are wire connections that were either improperly made or not put on the screw in a clockwise direction. Remember, clockwise, right tight, left loose. If you put it onto the left and tighten the screw down, it's going to try and straighten that wire out instead of pulling it into it. If you put it on clockwise and tighten it down, it pulls the conductor into the screw and gives you a better connection. Next thing I'm going to show you how to do is to make a proper splice or connection with 3 conductors. You're going to want 3 conductors, and you're going to strip them back approximately 3/4 to 1 inch distance of bare conductor. Remember, when you're stripping your wire, you don't want to use too small of a gauge on it because you'll ring your conductor, and if you ring your conductor, it'll fail and break off. So that's the last thing you want to do, is ring your conductor. You'll need to have your lineman's, because that is the best tool for doing this operation, lineman pliers. You're going to take your 3 conductors, put them together, parallel to one another, making sure your insulation is in line so that it gets a nice even connection when you do your first twist. Your first twist, you're just going to bend your conductors over the top of each other so that they'll end up forming into one another. Then you come back at different angles and pinch them into one another until they form a spiral or a twist. And these work like a flat iron. That's why a good pair of Lyman's will open and close without any resistance. So I highly recommend when you get your Lyman's to put some lubricating oil on them so that they operate freely, so that when you're doing this operation, you're not fighting your tool to make a good splice. Hi, welcome back. At this time, we're going to talk about a few of the tools of our trade, things that we use day to day and what they are. Some people know what they are and how they use them, but I wanted to go over them real quick and just give you a look at them and see what the different things are. We're going to start over here. This tool here is a stripper. It's used for removing the sheathing of Romex. It's listed and appropriate tool for doing that. Most people don't use that. Most everybody uses a utility knife. But this is the actual tool that's required and approved for it. This is a Wiggy. It's what I started out with 40 years ago for testing electricity. It will not do continuity, it only does voltage, but it was the original. They actually sell these till today. This is a more modern meter, and what you're probably used to. This is a Fluke T5 600 meter. It's got the true RMS, voltage, amps, and pretty much safety proof. It's really a well-made meter. Here we have a torpedo level. I recommend you get one of these because they have magnets on them. If you're going to be setting electrical panels, they'll attach to the electrical panel so that you can hands-free see where your level is on your panel and make sure you put it in plumb and level. This is a pair of adjustable water pump pliers. Everybody calls them channel locks. This is actually made by Crescent Tool Company. So channel locks is a brand name. Don't get into that habit of going by the brand name, knowing what the tool is called. It's adjustable water pump plier. All right, this is a Klein wire stripper. It has a spring for ergonomics for use so that it opens up when you've done your work. And it's got the gauges on it for your different wire stripping sizes. So it's a well-made tool. This is another version of Klein. It's the same thing. This has the same gauges on it. Also has holes in it for different sizes of screws. If you have to shorten a screw because of the cover plate or something needs to be shortened, you can thread it into the body of this and cut it off. It also has crimping ability for different types of electrical crimps. These are side cutters. Excellent for cutting. They're good leverage. They also will be utilized for removing a staple. You can get a hold of it, and because of the leverage of it, you can use it to remove a staple or brad if you have to remove one that you've put in. These are Lyman's pliers. These are the most used tool that I own. They're excellent for cutting heavy conductors. They're also the only tool for twisting your conductors together to make a splice, to make wire connections. They're also really good for another purpose. Step over here to this other tool. This is a fish tape. We use these to go in our conduits to retrieve our wires, to pull our wires through it, or down a wall, pull our wires to it. But when you're pulling them back out of the conduit, you don't want to damage this steel tape. So if you take this and put it across it, you can use this as a T-handle to pull your fish tape back out of your conduit. Next, we have a circuit breaker tracer. Again, this is made by Klein. Has a transmitter. You plug into the outlet where you would be using the power source so that you can identify what breaker operates that circuit. It works on live circuits. It also comes with an attachment so that if you don't have a receptacle, you just have conductors. Let's say you're in a junction box in an attic, and you need to identify what circuit that is so that you can turn it off without turning off other parts of the building. You'd plug this in, it sends a frequency back on the conductors, and this unit here will tell you what breaker it is. All you do is go to the breakers and tone it across, and it'll make that sound when it finds the correct breaker. Very handy tool. Next, you see an assortment of different screwdrivers. We have your insulated screwdrivers for your high voltage. We have your 11-in-1 screwdriver for general purposes. The nice thing about this is it also has nut drivers with it. Comes with nut drivers, has a square drive, 2 different sizes of square drive on it. Has a screw extractor on one end and a Schrader valve remover on the other end. That's good for you when you go to HVAC. You can remove the valves from your systems. And it has 2 different sizes of straight blade and Phillips screwdrivers on the other, large and small. So it's a real handy tool, and it's compact, so you don't have to carry a lot of different screwdrivers. You can get away with one. This screwdriver is very specific to our industry. It's called a trim screwdriver. It's designed to have a small, narrow blade so that when you're putting cover plate screws in, you don't damage or scar the outside of the cover plate with your screwdriver tip. And then I have a standard straight blade. This is what we had before you got the cordless screwdrivers. This is a twirly. Put it on and you twist it, it'll take your screw in and out rapidly, very fast. A lot of different other screwdrivers and tools out there, and you are going to need to find and get the proper tool for the job or application you're working on. If you have a specific need or something, I recommend you consult somebody that's actually done that type of work and get their professional opinion on the tool before you invest. Because tools are made to last a lifetime, and you've got to get the right ones for you.
I will trust that. Yep. But okay. I'm gonna mute and then unmute. Oh. Okay. Weird. I didn't know that it does that. That's very weird. Anyways, I'm done with my week 1 stuff, so thanks for watching, y'all. Have a good one.